I was remembering this time I was talking to a friend in the Philippines who said to me, he said, tell me, can you think of a song that is in your life that when you think of it, it makes you sad because it's reminding you of something in your life, but that memory is happy? And I was like, what are you talking about? What is behind this question? He's like, he first admitted he'd been watching too many what they call K-dramas, Korean like pop dramas. That was where it had come from. But he was just like, what I really mean is that as you think of that, you want to go back to that memory and live in that moment. I'm like, oh, gotcha. So I said, how much time do you have? I got a lot of songs like that. And he sent a cute little gif of a little bunny pouring tea into a cup and pushing it, like, let's go. So I don't know, we talked for like an hour. I'm like, this song and that song, and kind of like, this one always reminds me of this. And yeah, I get what you're talking about. And I tell you all that because in the end, that's this feast. Because as we were kind of wrapping it up, the thing I really wanted to do was hug him. Because we had both been sharing stories and parts of our lives and things that were beautiful and things that were ugly and betrayal, all of it, But I couldn't. He's on the other side of the planet. And that's the thing about what the gift of the Eucharist is. Because words will always ultimately fail you. They have to. They're limited. They're finite. They can never take us where we want to go. They're always ultimately going to be an abstraction. There's that Cajun novelist, Andre Debus, who once said that without the Eucharist, God is a monologue. And God ain't a monologue. It turns out that what God wanted was not to talk at us. That he wants to be present to us, that he wants to dialogue with us, that he wants to be in relationship with us. That's a very different thing. And so then we find ourselves at this feast. We hear in the first reading that reminder that here's the thing about the desert for them, right? The hunger wasn't the problem. They're describing, the manna came to feed them. That the hunger was the teacher. That God's answer to their problem in the desert wasn't to take them out of the desert, but was to come to them in the desert, be present to them there, and feed them there. Feed them there. And so I think that's an important thing to remember, how God interacts with us, where God shows up in our lives. God is not, God the aspirin or God the genie, ring, ring, all your problems are solved. There's no version of that in salvation history. And it certainly requires you to deny the cross if that's what you're looking for. That's not the reality for us. The reality is something very different. And that we find ourselves then as we move from that reality to think about where is it that God shows up for us? And then in this gospel story, I'm always struck by the word trogo in Greek. Because as Jesus says, unless you eat my flesh, and I bring this up from time to time. Sometimes people say to me, when I was a little girl, and the nuns taught us for communion, they said, just let the host dissolve on your tongue. Do not chew it. And I was always saying, then you've never read the gospel in Greek, because trogo literally means to masticate. Like it refers to what animals do, like a cow chews its cud. That's what we're talking about. It's a very earthy word. It's part of why they got so upset. They're upset about what he said in the first place. How are we supposed to eat his flesh, drink his blood? What is he even talking about? But then the word he chose to do that is not a dainty, polite word. It's this, like, unless you do it that way. And so this is a very different concept. And then if you stop and realize that everything that we do, because let me go back for a second, words fail us, no problem. God's never had a problem with that. We've always had another language. We've always had ritual. We've always had the things that we do that are more symbolic. Because maybe it is something that you get a phone call with a diagnosis that scares you, and you call a friend to talk it out. And again, words can take us so far. But where things, I think, really change for us is in the touch, when we can embrace one another. And so when you think about all that we do as a church that's sacramental, Do you ever notice that each and every one of them has a touch component to it? You're baptized. They receive oil first on the chest, then on the crown of their head. Their parents trace the crosses. We think about this Eucharist. We think about confirmation, rings of marriage or vows. Like everything that we do has this. We hunger for it anyway. And so Jesus knew this is what you're going to need, connected right to that story in Deuteronomy. Because what kind of bread did they get? Manna. Manna literally means, what is it? Right? That makes that sentence really weird in Exodus. Not knowing what it was, they asked, what is it? That's what it is. And when did they get it? Every day. You can't bank it. You can't store it up. He was going to meet you there every day. And the grace that you and I get in this Eucharist, you can't bank it. You can't store it up. And you think about the desert that they were in scripturally, think about the desert that we're in. Overworked, overstimulated, wandering around. In there enters God into our space and says, let me feed you. Let me give you my grace in this sacrament. And like I said, each and every sacrament that we have taps into that language that's beyond words. In this Eucharist tonight, that's who we encounter, the God that said, take, eat, drink. You'll have life within you. So that when words fail us, and they always will at some point, they're finite and imperfect, right? Then the touch, then the embrace of God, often shared to us by others around us, or maybe just right in our hand in this Eucharist, we have the opportunity to say that the real presence of God is coming to us, not because we've earned it, not because we deserve it, because he knows we need it. And we have a daily opportunity to tap into that grace, into the space of his peace and love, and then to be able to share that with others. There's a beautiful parallel that runs between those two stories of the manna and the Eucharist. And so for us tonight, celebrating this feast, we know what is being offered to us, an invitation. When words fail, God's going to show up and say, not a problem. I know the way to meet you, to be present to you. Take my flesh, drink my blood, so that you will have life within you. May God be praised.